There's a moment that happens during almost every meal. You're not quite full, but you're not really hungry anymore either. You're somewhere in between, comfortable, not stuffed. Most of us blow right past it. We keep eating because the food is good, because there's still some left on the plate, because finishing everything is just what you do. And by the time we finally put the fork down, we're past the point of comfortable. That tight, sluggish, slightly regretful feeling. We've just started calling it full. What if that middle moment, that not hungry but not full place, was actually where you were supposed to stop? People in one of the longest-lived regions on Earth have been stopping there for centuries. And there's a three-word phrase they use to do it. Hara Hachi Bu, the 80% rule. Okinawa is a small island chain off the southern coast of Japan. For decades, it's been one of the most studied places on Earth when it comes to longevity. It's part of what researchers call the blue zones, 5 specific regions around the world where people consistently live longer, healthier lives than almost anywhere else. Okinawans have historically had some of the world's highest rates of centenarians, people who live past 100. They experience lower rates of heart disease, cancer, and cognitive decline. Researchers have spent years trying to understand why. The answer isn't one single thing. It never is. But one cultural practice keeps appearing in the data. One habit so embedded in Okinawan life that most people who practice it don't even think of it as a habit. Hara Hachi Bu. It's a Confucian teaching that has been woven into Okinawan eating culture for generations. Before meals, many Okinawans silently recite it as a kind of mindful reminder. Not a strict rule, not a calorie count, just an intention. Stop before you're completely full. Here's what this video covers. We'll explain what the practice actually means, why the science behind it is surprisingly solid, why modern life makes it harder than it sounds, and, practically, how you can start applying it today without changing anything about what you eat. This is not a diet. There is nothing to track, measure, buy, or sign up for. It's a mindset shift, and it starts at your next meal. Let's break the phrase down. Hara means stomach. Hachi means 8. Bu means parts or tenths. So the full translation is stomach 8 parts, or roughly eat until your stomach is 8/10 full. 80%. Simple enough in theory. Genuinely tricky in practice. And we'll get to why in a moment. The way it's traditionally practiced is less about measuring food and more about creating a pause. In Okinawan culture, saying or thinking Hara Hachi Bu before a meal is like setting an intention. It's a prompt to stay present while eating, to keep checking in with your body rather than going on autopilot. Compare that to how most of us eat. We eat until the plate is empty, not because we're still hungry, but because the plate being empty signals us to stop. We eat until we're stuffed at a restaurant because we paid for it and we want our money's worth. We eat quickly because we're busy, distracted, or just not paying attention. In all of these cases, the signal to stop isn't coming from inside your body, it's coming from the environment around you. Hara Hachi Bu asks you to switch that. Stop when your body says it's enough, not when the plate says so. And that moment, that 80% mark, is earlier than most of us think. You know that feeling about 2/3 to 3/4 through a meal when things shift? When you're no longer eating because you're hungry, but just because the food is there and it tastes good. That moment of comfortable satisfaction before the heaviness sets in. That's roughly where 80% lives. The practice is just about learning to notice it, and then actually stopping. Here's the thing about hunger and fullness signals. They're slow. When you eat, your stomach stretches and begins releasing hormones. Ghrelin drops, leptin rises, cholecystokinin gets released into your bloodstream. These signals travel to your brain, which eventually registers, "Okay, we're full, you can stop." That process takes roughly 15 to 20 minutes from the time food enters your stomach. This creates a built-in delay. Your stomach can be completely full while your brain is still waiting for the memo. If you eat quickly, which is most of us, you can consume a significant amount of food in that 20-minute window before the fullness signal even arrives. By the time your brain finally says, "Enough," you've already overeaten. The stuffed feeling after a big meal. That's partly just the signal finally catching up. Stopping at 80% is essentially a calibration trick. You stop at a point that feels like not quite full yet, and then 15 to 20 minutes later, as the signals catch up, that 80% becomes exactly full. The timing works in your favor. Slower eating amplifies this effect naturally. When you eat more slowly, those signals catch up in real time. You don't need to guess where 80% is. Your body just tells you, because the communication is happening fast enough to be useful. Research on eating pace consistently finds that slower eaters consume fewer calories, not because they restrict themselves, but because they stop when their body says stop, and that message arrives before they've overeaten. There's also a calorie effect worth understanding. Studies have estimated that Okinawans eating in this traditional way consumed roughly 11% fewer calories per meal on average than if they ate until full. Over time, that compounds. Not dramatically, not overnight, but consistently over years and decades. It adds up to a significant difference in how much you've consumed, without ever feeling like you were restricting yourself. That's the part that makes this interesting from a longevity perspective. Modest caloric restriction, sustained over time, appears to have real effects on metabolic health, inflammation, and cellular aging. Hara Hachi Bu is a cultural technology for achieving that reduction without dieting. Of course, none of this is how most of us eat. We eat in front of screens, and I mean all the screens. Phone in one hand, laptop open, TV in the background. Multiple studies have shown that distracted eating consistently increases how much you consume. When your attention is elsewhere, you eat faster, you don't notice the satiety signals coming in, and you don't remember the meal, which paradoxically can leave you feeling less satisfied and more likely to snack again soon. Then there's the portion problem. Restaurant portions in many Western countries have grown dramatically over the last 40 years. What gets served to you at dinner out is often 2 to 3 times what a physiologically appropriate serving would be. And because it's on one plate, in front of you, it feels like one serving. Your brain is excellent at finishing what's in front of it. It's terrible at questioning whether what's in front of it is the right amount. And then there's speed. We eat quickly because we're busy, because it's a working lunch, because someone else at the table finishes fast and you feel the social pressure, because the food is really good and slowing down feels like withholding something from yourself. Here's the key insight about all of this. The problem isn't willpower. If you eat in an environment engineered for distraction and oversized portions, you will overeat, consistently, predictably, no matter how disciplined you think you are. The environment wins almost every time. What Hara Hachi Bu does is give you a tool that changes your relationship with the environment. Not by removing the distractions or shrinking the portions, but by giving you an internal reference point that doesn't depend on any of that. So how do you actually do this? Here are 5 practical ways to start. Tip 1. Pause halfway through. Somewhere around the middle of your meal, put your utensils down. Not to stop eating, just to pause for 30 to 60 seconds. Take a breath, drink some water, check in. Am I still hungry? How does my stomach feel right now? This interrupts autopilot. Most of us eat the entire meal in one continuous motion. Forcing a pause, even just once per meal, creates a gap where awareness can enter. Tip 2. Eat more slowly on purpose. This sounds obvious and is harder than it sounds. Practical methods. Chew each bite more thoroughly before swallowing. Put your fork or spoon down between bites. If you're eating with others, match the pace of the slowest person at the table rather than the fastest. Slowing down doesn't mean making meals feel endless. Even shaving a few minutes off your eating speed gives those satiety signals more time to arrive. Tip 3. Use a simple fullness scale. Before you eat, rate your hunger from 1 to 10. While you're eating, check in periodically. Ideally, you start eating at around a 3 or 4, genuinely hungry, not ravenous, and you stop at around a 6 or 7. That range is the 80% zone. It feels like comfortable rather than full. The more you eat in response to actual hunger rather than habit or boredom, the more accurate this scale becomes. Tip 4. Leave a few bites behind. This is a low-stakes practice in stopping intentionally. Not because you have to, not to be wasteful, but to prove to yourself that the signal to stop can come from you, not from the plate being empty. It retrains a reflex that most of us developed in childhood. The clean plate habit is deeply ingrained. Deliberately leaving a bite or two behind, regularly, starts to dissolve it. Tip 5. Remove at least one distraction per meal. You don't need to meditate over every meal. But even one meal a day eaten without a screen creates a different experience of eating. You notice the taste more. You notice how full you're getting. You notice the moment, roughly halfway through, when something shifts. That awareness is the whole foundation of Hara Hachi Bu. You can't stop at 80% if you're not paying enough attention to feel it. What does consistent practice of Hara Hachi Bu actually look like in real life? For most people, the first thing they notice is physical. That heavy, slowed down feeling after meals. The one that makes you want to lie down instead of get back to work. Diminishes significantly when you stop at 80%. Your body is digesting a smaller amount, so it doesn't have to redirect all its resources. Energy stays steadier throughout the afternoon. Digestion improves, bloating decreases. You feel lighter. Over weeks and months, for people who want it, gradual weight change tends to follow. Not from restriction, not from cutting food groups, but from consistently eating a bit less than you used to, because your body is actually telling you to. Weight change driven by satiety signals is sustainable. Weight change driven by willpower and restriction typically isn't. The longer-term benefits, the ones that make this practice interesting from a longevity perspective, take longer to show up. Better metabolic markers, reduced inflammation, lower risk of the chronic diseases associated with habitual overeating. These are cumulative effects over years, not weeks. Be realistic about the timeline. This is not a rapid fix. It's a quiet, sustainable shift in how you relate to food. And the benefits compound slowly, the same way the habit builds. Let's be honest about something. You will overeat. You will be at a family dinner where the food is extraordinary and you eat too much, because it would be genuinely strange not to. You will have a stressful week and find yourself eating a bowl of something at 10 p.m. that you didn't need. You will go to a restaurant and order dessert and eat every bite of it. None of that is a failure of this practice. Hara Hachi Bu is not a rule system. It's not a framework you're either following or breaking. It's an orientation, a general direction of travel. The goal is awareness, not control. And awareness doesn't have to be perfect to be useful. Even the act of noticing, after the fact, okay, I ate past 80% tonight, builds the practice. You're strengthening your ability to feel the difference between the comfortable place and the overfull place. That sensitivity develops over time. Progress in this practice doesn't look like perfect execution. It looks like the 80% moment becoming more familiar, more recognizable, so that over time, you reach it a little more often, a little more easily, with a little less effort. That's the whole game. Awareness accumulating slowly into instinct. Hara Hachi Bu is 3 words that have been used as a mealtime reminder in Okinawa for centuries. It doesn't require anything to be purchased, measured, downloaded, or tracked. It doesn't ask you to cut out any food group, follow any schedule, or change anything about what you eat. It just asks you to stop a little earlier, to sit with comfortable rather than waiting for full, to let the meal end before the heaviness starts, to trust that your body will catch up, that 80% now will feel like exactly enough in 20 minutes. At your next meal, try it once. You don't need to get it perfect. You don't need to measure anything. Just pause somewhere in the middle, check in with how you feel, and see if you can notice the moment when comfortable becomes enough. Because here is the thing that Hara Hachi Bu is really teaching. You don't need to be full to feel satisfied. That gap between full and satisfied is where this whole practice lives. If you made it to the end of this video, drop 80% in the comments below. No explanation needed. Anyone who watched will know exactly what it means, and I'll try to reply to as many as I can. If this kind of content resonates, slow, practical, grounded in real evidence rather than trends, this channel is where I make it. Subscribe if you want more. There are no gimmicks here, just things that actually work, explained as clearly as I can manage. Thanks for watching.